Hello and welcome everybody to the Exponential Potential podcast. And this month is all about creating balance and balance in your life, in your work, your health, your lifestyle, sort of encompassing it in a holistic view, and going beyond the work-life balance, but having all areas of life balanced. And today we have a wonderful guest with us, Kris Ward. Hello, Kris. Thank you very much for joining us.
Jennifer, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome. And I'm really looking forward to diving into some juicy topics as always. Kris will be sharing her story and we'll be diving into topics around, well, the title of the episode today is how to get out of the chaos and into the calm quickly. And I believe we all need a bit of that in these crazy, chaotic times. And we're going to be focusing on creating balance in your business and making it wildly successful while having that balance. But also, and this is something that I love, something that Kris talks about, is how we create success in our business, but also gain 25 hours in a week, which I love. And how to have a business that doesn't consume you, but actually supports your life. So Kris is the leading authority in leveraging your time and scaling your business. She's the founder of Win the Hour, Win the Day philosophy. And she helps entrepreneurs create their win team, which stands for what is next. So they can get to what is next and implement the 60-40 win formula so they can be in execution mode 60% of the time. And execution in this means relates to the equivalent of revenue. So execution equals revenue. Kris has shared the stage with some really incredible people, including Jack Canfield from Chicken Soul for the Soup. Chicken Soup for the Soul. I said Chicken Soul for the Soup.
That's okay. We knew what you meant.
I knew what I meant. Kevin Harrington, who's an original shark from Shark Tank. James Malinchak from ABC's Secret Millionaire. Sharon Lecter from Rich Dad Poor Dad as a co-author, and Joe Theismann, NFL All-Star and commentator, to name a few. And Kris has also featured on award-winning podcasts, radio, and TV shows. And Kris also, which we'll share the link on this, has a podcast herself, which is Win the Hour, Win the Day. So welcome, Kris. I'm so pleased that you could make it.
Oh, thrilled to be here, Jennifer. Can't wait to dive in.
Yes. So on that note, I'd love to, I usually ask our guests to share a little bit about their story, about how you came to be where you are today. And I know that you have a very heartfelt story that's an inspirational story as well.
Well, Jennifer, so I started my business like 14 plus years ago as marketing messaging was what I focused on. And, the first 2 years I was in business, I worked insane hours, like, oh my gosh. And my husband said, you're always stealing from sleep. That's your first go-to. It's getting up earlier and earlier, staying later and later. So it was about the 2-year mark that I was told very gently that I was losing some of my charm. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this cannot be. The people in my life that are cheering me on and really want me to do well in this business. And here I'm becoming, edgy because I'm exhausted all the time. And it just was not bringing out the best in me. And so what I did really was I started going from working 16 hours a day down to 6. Now, this did not happen overnight. This is a whole story on its own. But luckily I did that and turned it around, because it was a few years after that my husband had been diagnosed with colon cancer. And I was pulled away from the business for about 2 years. And when I returned after his passing, my existing clients had no idea of my absence. We did not share we were very positive in nature about his journey. So we kept it private. The local business community didn't know. We just didn't talk about it. And so and came to a real shock to everyone. Like, how could I have been going through all this and no one knew? So then my clients started to approach me under the capacity and fragility of life. Like, well, if you could do that, maybe you could help me get to my kid's soccer game. I could stop working evenings and weekends, ignoring my family. And so I started working with them under that capacity. And I realized how isolated entrepreneurs were and how so many of them looked good on paper. They had been in business 5, 10 years, and they were doing well and feeling grateful. However, they were still working way too many hours for this point in their journey. And that's when I thought, oh, they're not even admitting to others because A, they're too busy, and B, they look fine, online doing their thing. They got all this stuff going on. And so that's when I wrote the book, Win the Hour, Win the Day, so I could reach more people and really create a movement, as you said, that has a business that supports your life instead of consuming it. And from there, we started the Winner's Circle, where, my clients always tell me that they get 25 hours back a week within the first month of working with us. So that's where it all sort of came from.
Wow. that was a lot. That's and that's really quite an incredible story, that you were away from your business and it still ran and people had no idea that you weren't even there.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You can take the emotion out of this story and say, if I had returned, like, the reality is I returned without a second income. So I now lost an income. And take all the emotion of this story. I lost a husband, I lost an income. So if I had to return and then start looking for a job, try to be charming in a job interview, create a resume, and then learn a new job, oh my gosh, like, I was not in the headspace for that. So, you really do want to have, and life, when people would bestow sympathy upon me at the time, which honestly, I'll be frank with you, that's another reason I kept it private. I was like, I don't need all this sympathy. I just need to get through the day. But when people found out and then would sort of, smother me with sympathy, I'd say, you know what, everybody is something. This is my something right now. And so the reality is life has interruptions. And so you want to have a business that the moment you put it on simmer for a minute because something happens with your family or your mother or whatever, you can't be torn between two worlds and living in, such a fear position. So it's supposed to support your life, not consume it.
Mm-hmm. And so with the book, Win the Hour, Win the Day, the philosophy around that, can you sort of dive into that a little bit as to what you mean by win the hour, win the day?
Well, so much as entrepreneurs, we often have this big clump of things that we want to do, right? We have all these ambitions, and you're just then trying to do everything all at once, stressed out. Why am I getting nowhere? So really, at the most basic level, it's really not about what you do with your day, it's what you do with your hour. So if you win the hour, you can win the day. If you kind of like my husband used to say about hockey, if you practice how you play, right? And so you can't talk about how the stuff you're going to get done in the day. And then you're like, oh, you dropped an hour this morning. You have no idea where it went or what you're supposed to be doing, or you're running off a to-do list. So it's really putting things in practice. We always say we're focusing on 3 things: your team, your time, and your toolkit, right? And so putting those principles in play allow you to win every hour, which means you win the day.
Right. So it's almost like taking it a step-by-step process, but using time to do that. And you're breaking it up into, would that be fair assumption?
Yeah, it would be fair. I always, at this point now, I pull back a little bit on the word time, because we talk about time management. And I did this for so long too, especially when I wrote the book. But really what I call it is energy management. So it's not about managing your time. It's about, do you have the ability to produce the same amount of work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with the same clarity and focus and be as creative as you need to be? Or as your battery depleting? For me, many years, it was before I was exhausted before I started, but it definitely depleted. My brain got full as the day went on because I was chasing time and running around and trying to do all these things. So really, what I look at it is energy management, right? When you have your team, your toolkits, and your time all sorted out, then I'm as effective at 4 o'clock in the afternoon as I was at 10 o'clock this morning, because the principles are in play to serve me.
Right. And what are those principles?
Yeah. So we talk a lot about your team and your toolkit. So starting with your team. So yeah, we call it a win team, a what is next team. So you can get to what is next, because the reality is in business, it's, if you look at somebody online and you have a little professional jealousy, like, oh, I want to do that. Or they're doing all these amazing things. All they're doing is getting their ideas to execution quicker than you. And you're caught in the chaos and the nastiness of admin, and they're just able to execute faster. You're just as smart as them, but things are just not getting out. And that's what being an entrepreneur is. That's the difference between a job where you repeat the work all the time and being an entrepreneur. So when we talk about your team, we talk about, the world is a magical place, Jennifer. You can get amazing talent for $5-6 an hour. Now, the problem with that is you have to know what to do with them when you get them. You have to be able to keep them. You have to be set up so that they don't become, it's just easier to do myself because I'll have to train them. So when we talk about a win team, we have many things that we put in play in the Winner's Circle leadership program. We find, hire on board for you someone, and then we show you how to create leaders so that they're what you don't want to be doing. What you really don't want to be doing is you don't want to be delegating. So many people talk about delegating, and delegating is a lateral move because the work still comes through you. So that's a big mistake people make with their team, right? Is they delegate and they diminish the amount that person can do because they never give them the opportunity to shine or to grow or do anything like that. It's just like dumping tasks on them, right? So there's capacities there where, you're just not using that team effectively. So when we are talking about that in the Winner's Circle, another big thing we always tap into, and I'm sure you and your audience can relate to this, is when we had jobs, the reality of the corporate world is that it's very parentified. So your manager's like your parent, they're checking your work. It's like a parent checking a child's work or a teacher checking a student's work. And so you don't want to be doing that when you hire somebody. When you have a win team, you don't do all that stuff, right? So it's a very different philosophy, how it's set up, how it's run, how you communicate. So that's a big part of that. And equal to that, I would say, is our super toolkits. People think about when they had a job and they had these policies and procedures and systems and processes, and they're like, that's why I started a business. I don't want to be choked by that. And I get it 100%, because the problem with those systems and processes is they were not written by the end user. They were static in nature, and they're mostly there to cover liability. Where our super toolkits constantly allow you more and more freedom in your day to become more and more effective, lean on your strengths, be more efficient, never make mistakes, save brain power, and not just you, but your team. So what happens is, let's say I go, Jennifer, I'm now getting ready to write my second book. Then that means all the stuff that I'm going to do, my team is going to, there's going to be other things. I'll maybe be doing more podcasts, or, the book is going to take on some bandwidth on my calendar, and there'll be a fallout where they need more time in their calendar as well. So that super toolkit really makes a difference, because then their work is they're always getting more freedom on their calendar as well, which is very interesting, because I just had someone come back to me. She had been someone that we found, hired, trained, and on board for one of our clients. This was a number of years ago, almost 5 years ago. So the client graduated from our program. She'd worked with us for like a year or so. People work in 90-day cycles, but this one had great ambition. So she was with us like a year, 18 months. So now she's joined a bigger company and she's using their team. So the VA that we had found for her after being with her for 3 years is no longer needed. So she came back to me and said, hey, what's going on? Do you have a client I could work with? Great, no problem. Here's the interesting part though. She said, Kris, before I left, I made sure to download all my super toolkits, because she knows how effective they made her in her position. So she's going to bring them to the next position. Yeah. So it's powerful stuff, and it really does free the brain and just guarantees clarity and calm. And as somebody says, Kris, I got free focus thinking where I used to just have like white noise all the time, or perhaps you feel like you have these projects, but it's like picking up a bar of soap. It's always slipping through your hands. Or as one of my clients said to me, Kris, I feel like a pilot driving a bus. I'm just not getting anywhere, but yet I'm smart and I work so hard and I do all these things. And that's the type of stuff that you get from having a win team and using super toolkits.
That has a direct impact on freeing you up, releasing that crazy chaotic stuff where you're constantly doing it by yourself, because as you
Yeah.
say, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs especially, really struggle with you've got so many hats to wear. And one of the best things I did was hire a VA.
Yeah.
Although she's a lot more than that now. She's grown as I've grown.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It's, if I can give her a project to work on and she doesn't need my input, she can get on with it. And that does really free up the space and the time and the energy so that you can do what you're good at and do the creative stuff and do the stuff that you really love that has an impact on your business from a bigger picture.
Yeah, and we work with existing clients that have also come to us with teams. And by the way, when I say teams, that could be one person, two is a team, right? Yeah. So we definitely also work with people who may already have a VA or outsourcer, and we throw those words around, but it's really about building a team. And we are known for making those, like, you think, oh, I loved my VA. I thought she was amazing. I've been working with her for a year. And then what people tell me all the time is like taking you and you're like, I don't know, maybe like the high school track star, but now we're sending you to the Olympics. So there's just a way that breathes more freedom, more capability into all your ambitions and make you able to execute them like at a crazy level. Because that whole idea, even with one having a VA, sometimes you still buy into what we call in our quiz. We have this quiz, and I've noticed after working with hundreds of entrepreneurs that they fall into one of 5 categories. And one of them is what I call the sufferpreneur, where you think you're wearing all these hats and that the responsibility lies with you. And, it's just better if you do these things yourself. And it's really like, trying to be a person playing a whole bunch of instruments, like by yourself, like a one band person, right? Or digging a hole with a spoon. And so it's really interesting when people say, oh my gosh, I took your quiz, and it takes like, I don't know, 15 seconds and you get a full write-up, and people keep saying, oh, you nailed me. You totally nailed me. And so whether you're a sufferpreneur, focus-itis, or rushaholic, I'm a recovering rushaholic, there's strengths and limitations to your skill set. That you have a superpower, but you also have a kryptonite. So, knowing that when you're working with your team also really helps, because it is really having a team. And here's the thing. I often tell people, we talk about team culture, leadership, all that stuff is so important, but you tend to associate that with larger numbers, like, a company with 50 or 500 people. And I encourage you, Jennifer, to think about, let's say you were in an ocean liner and there's 500 people on the boat, you're on a cruise, and something happens. You're going to look and like, oh my God, okay, I found the 100 people here that know what's going on with what, and I'm sticking with these people. So that's like 1/5 of them. But if you're in a boat with 2 people, a rowboat, and something goes wrong and there's a hole, you better be sure that everybody there is pulling their weight, because that culture is way more important than the bigger number. And so it's that kind of stuff is, if you want to be making more money, if you want to be working less hours, if you want to have more fun in your business, if you just want to really execute at a high level and get these amazing projects out that you have in you, then you really want to be, sort of get all engines humming at all the time, and not start and get that plane off the ground, up and down, and get gas and fix the engine and all that stuff.
So how do you, I know a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners very much have that mentality of, I've got to do it myself because I don't trust anybody else. They won't do it the way I want them to do it. I want to stay in control.
Yeah, well, first of all,
it's a choice, isn't it?
Well, you have my sympathies for starters. Okay. So here's the thing. First off, you don't have control. You have control of not getting things out. You have control of not making the money you think that you definitely should be making. But what I would say is this: too often we have a talent or a service, and our focus is on that, and it should be. And then all of a sudden there's a little bit of pre-work before that and a little bit of post-work. And we often confuse that with the actual work that we need to be doing. So a quick story is, a client of mine, Sue, she was an interior designer. She still is an interior designer. And she would say, Kris, I go into people's houses, I look at their room. One of the biggest problems is they often have too much furniture. It's just in the wrong spot. It's just something I need to see. It's my gift. She had training, but it's also my gift. You don't get it. People can't help me. It's, so her average visit was about an hour and a half, 2 hours. But when we really broke it down, there was still some paperwork that was done when she got there. And she thought, oh no, I have to fill it out because I'm there with the client. And then there was some stuff afterwards. And it really wasn't something she had to do. Could that person be trained and complete this paperwork? Fine. Yes. So we did that. And all of a sudden we're getting her appointments down to like 45 minutes, which means she can now do 3 or 4 appointments in a morning. And then she started taking all the afternoons off so she could do very impressive and large speaking gigs. She was MC for people like off the HGTV, big league people off the Home and Garden Show channel in the US, all kinds of stuff, right? So that's a great example of like, you don't get it. My business is different. Here's the scenario, but I don't care if you're a brain surgeon, there is always pre and post work that you have now clumped under what you think needs to be done. And I would also say somebody doing it 80% as well as you is 100% amazing, right? Because now we're getting it out, it's getting done. And I say to my own team all the time, not only do I see them do things that I don't have the skill set for, they do it way better than me, and I wouldn't have had the time for that. But if they put out 10 amazing, whatever, pieces of, let's say, a blog, then if there's one I didn't like, guess what? 9 were great, and I got 10 out. And I would have got 1 out trying to fit that in a rushed capacity at the end of the day when I'm tired. And all of a sudden I'm getting 1 blog out every 4 weeks, So, if you think you need control, well, keep the control, but know it comes with a low income and exhaustion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes complete sense. You can't do everything. And if people are wanting to elevate their business or they want to create that balance and work less and earn more, it's sort of a no-brainer, really, isn't it, Kris?
Or have a business, because really what you're doing is you're being self-employed at best. So if you want a business, then, you have to have certain things in play, and you doing everything yourself, being chief bottle washer and cook, that's not a business. And I say that because I care. I think the kindest thing you can give somebody is the truth. And you just need to know you're self-employed, and all you need to do is slip on a piece of ice and break your arm. And literally I've seen people lose a business over that.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. So are there any tips that you can, so if someone's in the midst of chaos, what would be 3 things that you suggest that they do in that to create that calm?
Okay, so here, let's pick things from different things. So, because I get all hysterical about teams and super toolkits. And so I go on a rant, and I apologize if we go too far now. So, but here are some things you can do with your calendar. I would also say that 95% of people use their calendar wrong. Okay. What happens is they put things on the calendar that are outside appointments. Like, oh, Jennifer, you have me on your calendar because, oh, I got to meet with Kris. Got to make sure I show up for that. Great. But I used to hear from people all the time, oh my gosh, Kris, well, I don't put that on my calendar. I do it every day. I know I have to do that. And I would say, oh my gosh. So what happens is you're not putting the work on there every day, which means you can never reassign somebody else. You have no idea what's going on. You're operating off a to-do list, which is just a percolating list of emergencies. And so
that never ends.
That never ends. So what I would say to you is you might fall into your day thinking that you have 7 hours, and you might have 4 because you're not putting the things on there that you do every day. So that's a real problem. So one of the first things we do in the Winner's Circle is show you how to, and I'm not talking about put down that I got to do laundry or silliness on your calendar, but we show you how to use one of the most available free tools that have started since the 1500s, which is the calendar, and no one's using it correctly. But here's a little tip. Couple of things you can do is do the work that requires most attention or focus first thing in the morning. So many people wear down their battery with decision fatigue, attention residue by hopping into their email and having outside forces dictate their day, and they're responding and they're swatting at flies and they're all over the place, and they really deplete their battery. And they also, by sending out all these emails first thing in the morning, you're showing that you're a rookie. If you are trying to reach somebody, Jennifer, to be on this podcast, and they're like a important guests, you know, you're not going to hear back from them in 5 minutes or first thing in the morning. You'll be lucky to hear from them in 2 days, right? Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
I got back. They got back to me. So when I wrote my book, Win the Hour, Win the Day, one of the things I did is I made sure every morning that was the work that required the most tension or focus. And another thing I did is I worked backwards. We do this in our personal life. We don't do it in our business. So you might say, oh my gosh, Thursday morning, I have a dentist appointment at 11. It's an hour away. I got to leave at 10, which means I should be having breakfast by 9 and I have to do this at 8. Oh, but all of a sudden you're getting up at 8 to get somewhere at 11. So what I did with my book, Win the Hour, Win the Day, is I realized I had to get it to the editors by June, or she couldn't do it till September. Fine. So I did the math. And in order to achieve that, I had to do 5 pages per day, Monday to Friday. Now, there were some days that I thought I don't have 5 pages in me. And in the past, I would have been like, oh, I'll come in tomorrow and I'll be fresh. And the pages will just fly magically off the page. Like, it would just be wonderful. Tomorrow's a beautiful day. I'll be thinner and taller and more beautiful, right? And, but what I did was I would realize, oh my gosh, if I don't have 5 pages in me today, I don't have 10 in me tomorrow. So I would have to stick to it. So working backwards and also getting it done first thing in the morning. So it wasn't like hanging over my head and this happens and that happens. And now I'm trying to do it at 7 o'clock at night. Oh, that didn't happen. So now I'll dump it till tomorrow. And that's how things never get done. So, you know, knowing how to use your calendar, working backwards, the work that requires the most attention or focus first, and then having a win team using super toolkits that can relieve you of all that pre and post work so you can focus on that book first thing in the morning and you can always execute and get your ambitions to the marketplace, bringing in more revenue.
Right. That's very logical and makes a lot of sense. Yes, not having so much on your plate, so you're able to do less. And when you do less, you have more energy, and also then you can also do the things you love to do and hand over the things that you don't, if you've got a win team.
When you said earlier, Jennifer, somebody that wants control, I would say too, we call it the 3Ds. The most expensive thing you can do is try to do everything yourself. Because first of all, damaging overhead. If you could sell your services, Jennifer, even for $100, when then you're working on your business late at night because you're doing all this stuff that you think you have to do, and you're not bringing in that package for $100, well, then you're charging your company $100 per hour, you know, because you're not bringing in the potential revenue that you have capability of, right? So you're the most damaging overhead. And then delayed income. If you got a client in June that you could have got in January, how much does that cost you? And what if they referred you to one person? And then the most painful of it all is diminished opportunity. When somebody says, oh, Jennifer, man, I wish I'd known you did that. I just hired somebody, I'm just locked in. But you were too busy doing busy work. And now, what was the lifetime value of that potential client that you lost? And they would have went with you. So just remember that it's incredibly expensive to be doing this solo.
Yeah, a lot more expensive than it would be if you were hiring somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. $5-6 an hour, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coffee, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So where would you suggest people start? I mean, we obviously looking at your calendar and being realistic with your calendar, looking at a win team, and my mind's just gone blank. The second one.
Oh, and then toolkits. So
the toolkits.
Yeah. So it's a lot to start with. I mean, these are just the big pillars in which we lean into. So I think to start with, Jennifer, if you even just realize, look, I thought me grinding it out, working so hard was the best thing I could do. And I remember coming to like understanding, like, I remember saying to my mom, oh my gosh, who knew I'd have to learn not to work so hard? Who knew that, you know, that was the biggest compliment somebody could give you. So you think you're being noble and you're giving this great cause and sweat and everything to your business, but you're just, I mean, Olympic athletes don't work out a week before the Olympics. They have this whole rest program and it's like, you know, whatever. So this, if nothing else you learn from today, that you can bring so much more to your have freedom in your lifestyle, your business, bring more, have bigger impact on the marketplace, make more money. I mean, one of my clients, she came to, oh my gosh, I shouldn't even say this, but a lot of the people that meet with me to work with us, lots of times they miss the first appointment because their life is out of control. The business is crazy. They're not using their calendar. Now, I don't encourage it. So don't make an appointment with me and say, okay, it's all right to miss the first one. But this woman missed the second one. And I was like, okay, wow, we're out, we're done. And she begged me, please meet with me. I need you. So I'm like, okay.
She really needed you, didn't
but
she,
I was
Kris?
like, I'm thinking, who's the fool here? Me, right? Anyhow, I did meet with her. And she would be the first to say, it's actually on my website. There's clippings from her coaching, just raw clippings and stuff. And she'd be the first to say when she started working with me, it was like her hair was on fire. She could like, she couldn't even get to the appointment. Within a year, not only did her income quadruple, like 4 times she increased her revenue. She cut her hours also. Like she went from working like 80 hours a week down to like 30. And within that year, she went to Costa Rica for a month with no Wi-Fi or cell and had the person we found for her running her business for $5-6 an hour while she was away. Like that's the magic of it. It's just, there is an easier way.
And I think it's knowing or learning, discovering what's possible. And this exponential potential is all about possibility and thriving. So what you're talking about is truly letting go of all that control and allowing other people to take part of the reins and run with it, so that you can, there's so many possibilities with that in terms of a team, and possibilities then for the rest of all different aspects and elements of your life, that you can go away to Costa Rica for a month.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And the interesting word you keep using is control. And I would say to you, you really don't have control. Do you feel you have control? Because you don't. You're out of control. You're reacting. You're stressed out. You're pivoting all over the place because you're trying to be everything to everybody. So in fact, if you want control, this is the way to do it. What you have is not control.
And that's the same as freedom as well, isn't it, Kris? If you want freedom, and I'm a massive freedom seeker, which bit me severely in the backside when I, starting my online business. And I had to do a lot of my, belief changing and find those sneaky hidden beliefs. But I realized actually my business will bring me freedom.
Yeah.
If I put these systems and strategies and structures in place. It will, at the moment, I'm not free.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the financial, I didn't have the financial success that I wanted. So it's the same thing, isn't it? You have a perception of, well, I'm in control of my business, and you're absolutely right. There's no control, because you're here, there, and everywhere, running around like a headless chicken and not getting anything done, not being effective or productive in any way at all.
Yeah. And it's people like you that do so well in our winner's circle, because you do have things in play and things are working for you, and you are smart and you do have a VA. So it's almost like miles to the gallon. Do you want a car that gives you 10 miles to the gallon or 100 miles to the gallon, right? And you just get further faster and enjoy the ride, and you don't have to spend as much in the gas tank. And it's just, you're not pulling over all the time to get more gas. Like it just makes it, so much more easier. So yeah, no matter what you're doing, I guarantee you the potential's there to do more.
Yeah. No, I would agree for sure. Is there anything else that you want to mention? I know you have a gift. I'd love you to talk about that. But before you talk about that, is there anything else that you would like to share that could be beneficial to our audience in terms of?
I could turn this into a 6-week Netflix series. There's so much. So what I would just say is, listen, business should be fun. Otherwise, you could have stayed at that job that you didn't like. And frankly, by now it'd be cheaper. There'd be no overhead and the hours would be better. Because I remember one time way back in what I call my dark years, working at 2:00 in the morning, and I'd been up since 5. And I thought, you know what? There are laws in this country to stop this kind of exploitation. If I worked for somebody else, I would be like, you cannot make me work those hours. You are crazy. Like the injustice of it all, right? And yet I was doing that for the sake of my business, which I didn't realize after you put so many hours in, you're making 50 cents an hour if you're lucky. So you know what? Business should be fun, or you could stay at a job that would have been easier on your health, your wallet, everything. So it's just that simple. It doesn't have to be this hard. I promise you. Promise you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's, how you get to play in your business and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about the gift you're offering our listeners, a great gift.
Yeah, we have two kinds of goodies in there. If you go to free gift, free FREE gift, GIFT from Kris, KRIS.com, free gift from Kris.com. One is, and I put this in special for your listeners, Jennifer, you get a free audio version of my book, so you can check that out.
Wow.
And then the other is check out the quiz. It takes like 30 seconds and you get instant customized results. And it really leans into, what your superpower is, what power personality you have as an entrepreneur, and then gives you some ways to lean into that more and to minimize the obstacles that you have, having that personality.
Fantastic. And we will have those links in the description. So please check those out. And if people want to reach out to you, Kris, how's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I'm on any of the socials. Check me out on LinkedIn. It's always a great place to get a message and tell me that you heard me on this fantastic show, and we will be fast friends.
Marvelous. And again, all of Kris's links will be in there. So thank you very much, listeners, for listening and tuning in. And you know what to do. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. It helps us to continue to bring you great, valuable content and expert guests like Kris today. So thank you, Kris, for joining us and for your time. It's been really helpful and beneficial. And take care, everybody. Till next time. Bye-bye.